Hey there, welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. So this is that time of month again when we're going to talk about my haul for the month, which means the albums and, well, actually the CDs I've collected over the last month, the month of August. I've got my Beatles shirt on here, the greatest progressive rock group of all time. Yeah, and I often wondered what would have been like for the Beatles in the 70s if they'd stayed together. Would they have become a progressive rock band, or would they have done more like what they did individually? I don't know. They definitely became a bit of a psychedelic band there towards the end of their careers. So, and some really interesting stuff. So, anyways, we're not here to talk about the Beatles, although we probably could for the rest of the show and nobody would complain. But we're here to talk about the albums I bought this month. Now, I'm just going to do a quick count here. 5, 10. I've got 18. I could have swore there was more. 18. I'm just going to do a quick check here. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they're all here. All the ones I got are here. I just thought maybe there might have been a couple that got moved around because I've been listening to them. Had to clean them up. These people like to put these stickers on the CDs when they're for sale, and that gook that's underneath when you pull off the sticker. You know, I've discovered if you pull it really slowly, you can get most of it, but sometimes they don't work quite as well as you wish they would. They come apart and difficult to get off. Annoying. Anyways, that's my rant for the minute. So today we're going to start off. I didn't actually get much in the way of progressive this month, which surprises me. I thought there was more, but I only got 3 progressive albums, and to be honest, I don't know that I would classify even those 3 as progressive. Maybe the one. Anyways, we'll start out with the progressive stuff and then work our way down to the country western at the bottom. Yeah, that's a big love of my life. Okay, so the first one is this one, Genesis Live. The way we walk. This is the shorts. You know, and if you look at the songs on this album, Land of Confusion, No Son of Mine, Jesus Knows Me, Throwing It All Away, I Can't Dance, Mama, Hold On to Your Heart, That's All, In Too Deep, Tonight, 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 Invisible Touch. Definitely not a progressive rock album. The band itself is, to me, still one of the great progressive rock bands of all time. But this is not a progressive rock album. Although it's probably pretty decent. I don't know what this kind of walking thing they got going here is, but at any rate, it's Genesis, so has to get some listening to. Actually going to be doing this album, did this album last Friday on Friday Night Live experience, and probably will do the other one next week. I didn't have the other one when I started this, but I do now, and there it is. Same thing, Genesis Live, the way we walk. This is the Longs. Now this is more progressive. Old Melody, Dance on the Volcano, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, The Music Box, or The Musical Box I should say, Firth of Fifth, I Know What I Like, Driving the Last Spike, Domino, Part 1, In the Glow of the Night, Part 2, The Last Domino, Fading Lights, Home by the Sea, Second Home by the Sea, and Drum Duet. So this is definitely more progressive. This is more like the Genesis that I know from the 70s. But it's the same group of guys that's on this one, but they're a set. So the shorts and the longs. Okay, so the next one out, I forgot the sticker on it. Just give me 1 sec. I'm going to pull this mother off here. I hate stickers. I wonder why they put them on. And you can't get this sticky crap off. Just makes a mess of the album. Anyways, We already had that rant. We don't need it again, right? So this is Jethro Tull. This is their first CD. I wanted to have it. I've actually never heard this album before, and I listened to it in its entirety, and I don't think there was a song on here that I knew. I don't believe there was. Song for Jeffrey, maybe that might be the only one. This is much. It does have some of your. It's got a little bit of the Jethro Tull sound that most people know, and what I have come to like. But this is more bluesy than the other albums, and there's not much to this inside either. It's just some pictures of Ian Anderson and Mick Abrams, and some more of Ian Anderson and Mick Abrams. I guess the other guys don't matter too much at this point in this stage. Maybe this is the other guys in the dark. Okay, enough of that. Anyway, so I listened to the album. It's kind of got a real bluesy flair to it. But you could tell that this was their first album and that they had not really developed the Jethro Tull sound completely at this point in time. But that would change with the next album, which I think is just way up there. So anyways, I got this. I'll be listening to this in the future. So that's kind of it for my progressive stuff, which really isn't progressive, except for maybe the Genesis Longs is progressive because some of the music is progressive, but basically these are progressive rock bands that don't do progressive rock music at this point in their careers. Okay, so the next album is more of definitely a hard rock album. Hugely impactful album to me when it came out. I was at the gym training, and this album came on the air. The guy came on Q107, says, we have a new album from this solo artist. Here it is. This is the first play, and they played I Don't Know and Crazy Train from Blizzard of Oz. And I went from the gym all the way down to Yonge Street to Sam, the record man, and bought the album. Just like that. I played the shit out of this album, excuse the French. Played it day and night, night and day, listened to it all the time. I loved it. I became a huge Ozzy fan at this point in time. When was this released anyways? I keep thinking it was in 1980, but I do believe it was in 81. Yeah, it was in 81. Mega album. Every track on it was a killer. I Don't Know, Crazy Train, Goodbye to Romance, and even the little acoustic bit by Randy Rhoads, D. Suicide Solution, Mr. Crowley, No Bone Movies Tonight, Revelations, Mother Earth, Steal Away in the Night, underrated song. So this album was a great album. And I played it, like I said, I played it till I was exhausted. And then I put it away and got the second album, which I don't have here to show you, but played that one pretty much the same way, but I thought this was better. Now I think that's better, but I haven't listened. I got this about 2 weeks ago, and I listened to it its entirety. I realized I hadn't listened to the entire album since I moved out from my parents' house in 1985. Wow. So what's that? 37 years I haven't listened to this album. And it had kind of a goosebump feel when I listened to it again. Unfortunately, Randy Rhoads had to pass, and that kind of ended the Ozzy thing for me. But anyways, that's a great album. It still has that effect. I think I burned it out, couldn't listen to it for decades, but now I think I could listen to it again. Okay, the next album out comes from a band that is growing in esteem with me. I love each of their albums. They're so different, but so cool. There's so much coolness with their music. And that's this one. Blue Oyster Cult's Tyranny and Mutation. Great album. It's one of the black white albums. This one I think is their first album. I believe it's their first album. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Yeah, I think this is their full-scale touring first album. Cemented Blue Oyster Cult. Yeah. I love the cover. Album is kind of psychedelic, actually, looking. I like the album itself. Looks cool. Songs on it are... This is actually a pretty heavy album. I listened to its entirety just once, so I don't know too much about it, but it's a pretty heavy album by their standards, even. I can see why they got compared to Black Sabbath at this stage. They do have that kind of similar sound that Sabbath had at the beginning, and pretty heavy. And then they've been classified as heavy metal, but to be honest with you, I don't think of them as heavy metal. I think them as hard rock, space rock, even some prog rock in here, and definitely some quirkiness to their music. And the fact that all 5 members sing really gives an added flavor to the group. So Blue Oyster Cult, great album. Like I said, I really like that. And then the inside, just give you a little brief tour of the inside booklet for those of you who always like to see what you're getting. It's a nice shot of the group in concert. Nice shot of them playing. Here they are again. Kind of like Alan Lanier. Wow, look how young he is there, eh? And Buck Dharma, of course. He's probably the central figure of the group. I don't know if he was back then, but he definitely, I think, has turned into that now. Okay, the next album out. I had this album, but I bought a CD, and this album was in it, but it wasn't the album that was supposed to be in it. So that really wasn't what I wanted. So then I saw the album again. I said, you know what, I'll buy it. And this time, it actually had the album in it. So this is Aerosmith's Pump. It comes on kind of the beginning of the era where people either, the original people who followed Aerosmith hate it, and the people who like Aerosmith hate the original stuff. And seems to be a lot of, what do they call it? Like this album has some good stuff on it. I think, you know, for me, I will probably like it. I'm not as prejudiced about, I think sometimes it's an advantage not to be a huge fan of a band, because when you're a huge fan of a band, what happens is if they change their music to do something different, now, I'm not going to quote me on this, but I think that a lot of people get really turned off by it. I know this happened to me with several of the bands I liked in the 70s. In fact, almost all of them. But I wasn't a huge Aerosmith fan, so I don't really think of them as any different. I know these are a little poppier, a little ballad driven. I don't know if this one is. I don't see any of the famous ballads on here. I mean, it's got Jamie's Got a Gun and Love in an Elevator, but I don't really think of them as ballads. So, probably one of the last kind of albums before they went into that ballad-driven Steven Tyler era. But I look forward to listening to it. I haven't listened to it yet. I will listen to it. It was the same with Get a Grip. I thought that was going to be the same type of thing. That had a lot more ballads on it, though, so that was more into that era. So, but I tend to like the earlier Aerosmith, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not a huge Aerosmith fan. I tend to drift it more towards Black Sabbath and I'm trying to think of the other band that went out of my head. But anyways, more towards a Black Sabbath sound than I was towards the Aerosmith and kind of Van Halen stuff, which came a little bit later. Okay, here we are. The number... The damn stickers, they annoy the crap right out of me. I keep forgetting. I missed a couple. Anyways, I got it off. These ones aren't too bad. They're just tiny little pieces of paper with a number written on them. Wish the number was lower, but... Anyways, I got this one. I know some of you are saying, hey, you showed this a few months ago. Yeah, I did. The problem was I went to play that. I put it in the system to play it. And all of a sudden I'm hearing Whole Lotta Love, and I'm going, I don't remember this being on this Led Zeppelin album. And then I went and looked at it. Sure enough, the album I had, or the cover I had, was a Led Zeppelin 1. The album inside was a Led Zeppelin 2. And I already had Led Zeppelin 2, so I went out, and when I seen this, I got it again. Nice shot of them. Same thing. I'm not going to do too much on it because I did this a few months ago. This, at least this time, is Led Zeppelin 1. I've listened to it in its entirety. I had this album when I was a kid. Well, not when I was a kid, but when I was a teenager. And I played it. It was never one of my favorite Led Zeppelin albums, but it does have some really solid tracks on it that are stand-ins for me all the time. Communication Breakdown, of course. Good Times, Bad Times. Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. Those ones I liked quite a bit. And maybe the album will grow on me. It's a little bluesier than I liked in the time period when I got it. Probably why it didn't do as well for me as it probably would have maybe 5 or 6 years later. Okay, the other album I got, Led Zeppelin 3. I've been looking for this one. Saw it for a reasonable price, and I had to have it because for a long time this was my favorite Zeppelin album. I know that's kind of weird because most people think of this as being the pop version, or the kind of mellow version of Zeppelin that a lot of them didn't like. Especially when I was growing up, a lot of people didn't like this album. They didn't think it was very Zeppelin-ish at all. But it does have the Immigrant Song, so you got to give it that. But almost all the stuff on here, Celebration Day, Since I've Been Loving You, Gallows Pole, Tangerine, Out of the Tiles, That's the Way, hats off to Roy Harper and Bonnier R. Stomp. Great stuff. Great album. I still like it a lot. I haven't listened to it very much. It was part of my vinyl collection. There's not much to look at there, so I'm not going to bother showing you that. Album was used, but it's in good condition. It's funny, I always think for some reason that this album, being a Led Zeppelin 3, came out sometime in the mid-70s, but it actually came out in 1970, because the first two albums were in 69, or the first album was in 69 and the second album was the beginning of 1970, and then this one. So this album's actually 52 years old. Unbelievable, eh? Good album though. I really like it a lot. Then of course I went on this Zeppelin spree, and I got this one. This is the only album by Led Zeppelin I've never listened to until I got it just now, and I had never owned. The other ones I all owned or listened to it at some point in their history. This one was the only one I hadn't. It's a double CD even. I think there's one and the other one's here. I really like this kind of thing here, because every time I see this, the first thing that comes to mind is Meaty Beaty Big and Bouncy. It just reminds me it's like the same apartment building almost. It's got to be in the same area. Anyways, it's got the little Led Zeppelin up here. A lot of really good stuff on here. Stuff I had. There's a lot of stuff here I'd never heard before, and then there's some stuff I hadn't heard a lot of, but I had heard it before. Of course, Kashmir is on here, so many think that's one of the best, if not the best, Led Zeppelin song. I like it a lot myself. The Rover's really good. Coincidentally, Houses of the Holy is on this album and not on Houses of the Holy, so it's kind of strange. But anyways, I listened to this in entirety once. Really good. I'm looking forward to this going into my playlist now that it's been properly hauled in. Okay, next up we have, that's kind of it for the rocky stuff. Now we got some more poppy. Some of it's rock, some poppy. I got this the other day. Don't know anything about this album. I think the album cover is pretty decent though. Tango in the Night by Fleetwood Mac. This is a band that I can listen to, but they're not one of my favorite bands, and for some reason I can only listen to them once in a while. Even the album I got recently that was on my playlist, it had some really good heavy stuff on it too, like heavier than I remember them ever being. I just couldn't just couldn't listen to it too much. Yeah, pretty strong stuff, featuring, of course, all 5 members of the band. You know your traditional Stevie Nicks, John John McVie, sorry, drawing a blank. Christine McVie, Mick Fleetwood, and Lindsey Buckingham are all on this album. I think Lindsey Buckingham is a pretty underrated individual. All the stuff he did in Fleetwood Mac, this guy's great, man. Okay, so now we're going to move on to these guys. I did get this album, Magical Mystery Tour. It's got, where is it? Hello, Goodbye, I Am a Walrus, and Strawberry Fields. All songs that you don't see on their discography. Like, they're not in the discography by the Beatles. This album was actually released in the United States. I think it's originally supposed to be somewhat of a compilation, but it has a bunch of songs on it that were B-sides or singles that were never on other albums. So it's kind of that album that, even though it's not part of their discography, it probably is part of their discography. You know, I'm not a huge knowledgeable person about the Beatles, but my understanding is this was released in North America only. So if anybody knows differently about it, I'd like to have the truth. Okay, next up, I have not listened to this yet. Traveling Wilburys Volume 1. Pretty good album. I think some of these songs I've heard on the radio. I kind of had to have it. You know, when you got a star cast like that, you kind of have to have it. Although, you know, I'm not a huge Bob Dylan or Roy Orbison fan, unfortunately. I know I'll take some heat for that, and I'm okay. I don't dislike either of them, of course, but they're not really people I would listen to. George Harrison is a different story completely. I think the guy, Jeff Lynne, is it Jeff Lynne? Yeah, Jeff Lynne, very underrated musician. Great, some of the greatest stuff written in music was written by him, but he's so unknown, right? And then, of course, Tom Petty, who I don't dislike. Tom Petty, to me, he's a non-entity. I don't really think about him too much. I will listen to his stuff. I don't have any problem with it, but I don't really have any excitement about it either. There you go, Traveling Wilburys. Okay, this album, I listened to it its entirety already. Boy, I forgot how much I like these guys. You know, these guys are like predecessors to rock for me. So before I really got into rock music, before I discovered Bachman-Turner Overdrive, and then was propelled into rock music by Kiss, I had heard some of the stuff by these guys, as I had heard some of the Beach Boys and stuff, and the Beatles and all that, but I really didn't listen to the music. But this stuff I liked. And I'm not really sure. I think it was Frankie Valli's voice. I thought, holy mackerel, man, somebody's squeezing him tight. But there's a lot of really good stuff on this particular album. I don't own any of their albums, but I just bought this compilation because I just had like this Big Girls Don't Cry, Sherry, December of '63. And on here it has those 3 songs again, but in the kind of long dance versions, like the disco versions. Kind of kooky, but kind of interesting too. So yeah, I had to have that. Again, in the scheme of things, I'm not really a greatest hits or a greatest hit. Like, I'm not a greatest hits collector, but some people I know I'm not going to collect all of their stuff, and I don't really have any desire to. Their hits are good enough for me. But I bought this one, Procol Harum, not because I have no intention to collect more of their stuff, but I really didn't know much about them other than Conquistador and A Whiter Shade of Pale. Those are the only 2 songs I knew, so I thought, well, before I start collecting their albums, I should probably listen to some of their other stuff to see if it's something I'll listen to. And I've listened to it. I'm not sure yet. I haven't made up my mind. Next up was an album that I got when it came out, almost the day it came out. Listened to it a lot. Really liked this group. I had the previous 2 albums that had been out. One was a live group, and I liked both of them. And this one I thought was over the top, really good. The Dream Police by Cheap Trick. And I thought, wow, this band is just getting so good. And then that was it. I just never bought anything else by them. And here it is 40 years later, and I still haven't. I've still only got the Dream Police and Heaven Tonight and Live at Budokan. Maybe I will get more of their stuff. I don't have any burning desire to do it, but I do like those albums a lot. Okay, so the rest of the stuff is not rock related. Some of you have already seen this one because I did a episode on more other music other than rock, and that is the Andrews Sisters. I love the Andrews Sisters. If there was no such thing as rock music, they would be right near the top of my favorite singers. Right up there with Nat King Cole and Bing Crosby and them. But the Andrews Sisters, they just have a harmony that they were maybe the first of their kind, and I still think they're the best of their kind. I love all 3 of them. Thank you. Okay, speaking of Nat King Cole, here he is. Just what I need. Another greatest hits from Nat King Cole. The best of Nat King Cole. I've got like too many to talk about. And I've got it because it had a song on here that I have not heard him sing, and that's Sand and the Sea. So I said, you know what? I haven't heard that song. I got to have this album. Yeah, that's what it was. And of course, this one I've done on music other than rock too. Maybe the only country western artist I like, and I'm not even sure why, because to me he kind of represents all the things about country western music I don't like. He's twangy as hell. The music is hurting. The lyrics are corny in some ways. And it's old and dated and all kinds of things about country music I didn't like, and he represents them all. But for some reason, I like him. I think it's the cowboy hat, to be honest with you, because I like westerns and I like western movies and I like western books, and he just reminds me of a western cowboy. So I do like him quite a bit, and I even like his music. And so that's it. That's my collection for the month. I don't think I missed anything, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I put them in the wrong spot. But anyways, it wasn't a great month. I got some decent stuff, but I had wanted to collect quite a bit more progressive rock, but I just hadn't got the chance to do so. So next month it'll be me focusing on that. When I make my trip to my usual place that I get my stuff, I'll be looking for more progressive oriented stuff, because the stuff I've been listening to a lot on my playlist, which is this column here, is almost 60%, 70% progressive, but the albums are getting a little bit long in the tooth, so I'm going to have to start replacing them with some more. And although these ones, which are the ones that are going to go on my playlist, are 3/4 progressive rock, it's always good to have more. There's not enough progressive rock in this world for me. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this show. I like doing this particular one. It really makes me think about all the artists that I'm listening to. And I think it kind of promotes what I was hoping to do on this channel in the first place, which was to promote progressive rock. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this show, so please like and subscribe. It's much appreciated. We'll be doing some more episodes this week, and I hope that you will stay tuned for those. So from Murph on Prog Monster, you have a great evening. All the best. Bye.